thank you. Yes, so we're from the University of Surrey, and yes, go next slide. And our talk actually segues from Peter's quite nicely, because we've actually some of the experiences he was saying we've found as well, especially the one about if you manage to get this right, nobody notices. That's what you're kind of aiming for. Yeah, so there's our job title. So I'm Hannah Wise, and I'm joined by Sally Hoadley and Jerome Farrell. And we all work in the content team at the University of Surrey Library, dealing with access and authentication of all things e-resourcing. So I'm just going to hand over to Sally now to go through the next slides.
Okay, so why we're here today. So initially, a few of us have been to the OpenAthens conference before. We thought, good, stay out in London, nice there for the lunch, but sadly that's not to be. So we recently have found that suppliers are trying to force personalisation features on our students, including disclosure of personal names and email addresses. And we've also been made aware of publishers collecting and retaining personal information against usage of e-resources, which has caused us some concern. Since 2016, there's been quite a lot more scrutiny on the access we give to outside providers to our users' data. We've had to be more careful about dealing with requests for data from suppliers. GDPR specifies how much data should be given, and that consent should be freely given before any data is disclosed. And as you can see, we've got a little quote there from the GDPR regulations. So the two articles that are showing are from Chapter 2 of the General Data Protection Regulation, and we think these are most pertinent to the topic. So from Article 5, the first point, personal data should be adequate, relevant and limited to what is necessary. And then the bit from Article 7, Part 4, when assessing whether content is freely given, utmost account should be taken of whether, inter alia, the performance of a contract, including the provision of a service, is conditional on consent to the processing of personal data that is not necessary for the performance of that contract. So we spoke to OpenAthens about this, and their position seems to be, as long as people are using federated single sign-on, there should be no conflict with GDPR. And the two attributes that publishers should only need for this are those two stated: the EDU person scoped affiliation, identifying the user's subscribed institution or organisation, and the EDU person targeted ID, for the persistent user pseudonym for personalisation. So on to our first case study regards this topic, which is Westlaw. So when Westlaw upgraded to their new platform last summer, part of their upgrade involved forcing users to sign in using one-pass authentication and disclosing their first and last name and email address. So we had some concerns over this and queried Westlaw about this. Westlaw told us they were moving away from shared anonymous authentication systems, and this is what they told us. So, as a business, we are moving away from the shared anonymous authentication, both for security reasons and because personal access allows our users to take full advantage of the features available in our application. The platform, which hosts the new Westlaw UK application, uses one-pass authentication, which ensures higher standards of security, availability and confidentiality trust service principles than the authentication methods used with the legacy applications. On request, your account manager can provide you with an information security report on this authentication system. Westlaw then told us it was possible to set up anonymous access. However, they didn't recommend doing so, as it would make it more difficult to provide assistance in cases of access or queries. We felt that this was not a strong enough case to force users to provide personal information in order for them to be able to access the resources we had paid for. We also asked for an extension to the platform migration to allow us to put anonymous access in place before going live with the new platform, but Westlaw said that unfortunately was not possible. So we opened a case with OpenAthens and asked them to look into this, and we worked with them and our IT department, setting up configuration behind the scenes, allowing for the anonymous use of Westlaw, which it did happen. During this time, Westlaw mentioned that they kept recommending that we shouldn't take this route, but they did help us to achieve anonymous access. We had a staff shortage last summer, which caused some delays. So the date of migration was the 5th of August, and by the time we sorted things out, it was around the 16th of August. So it wasn't a long process, but it was a bit of an annoyance. We've had similar problems, unsurprisingly, with a certain other law database, Nexus, but they have not been quite as helpful on the issue as Westlaw were with the help of Open Access and OpenAthens. Okay, on to case study 2, which is Retail Week. So we purchased Retail Week as a new title last year, and our users were asked to register an account and provide as compulsory their title, first and last names, email address, phone number, address, and job function. And without providing these, people weren't able to sign in and access the resource, and we thought that this was a ridiculous amount of information. So we got in touch with our data project manager, who is part of our information compliance department, and she advised us that students should be made aware that their personal data may be shared outside of the European Union economic area before they register. We thought that we could put this information into a public note on Primo, the fact that a student's personal data may be shared outside the EEA, and we contemplated whether this was enough or whether we put a message in to say they check this privacy note themselves. Okay, so what we did, we added a message and a link to the privacy note on Primo, which is our discovery service, alerting students to this fact. We weren't happy about this, but in order to provide this resource, we couldn't say no to the provider. When we have things like this, it means that when we review this resource next year with our faculty engagement librarians, this is something that is an issue, and they'd look at it and consider whether they wanted to renew or not. There's also an issue in that if students don't agree with this message, do they not use the resource, or it's down to them really, I suppose, but that's an issue as well worth mentioning. Okay, our last case study is the ENDS report. So we wanted some usage statistics for the ENDS report, so they weren't generated automatically for us, so we emailed the publisher for them, which was Haymarket. And Haymarket provided us usage statistics with users' full names and email addresses, as well as the dates they accessed the resource. So aside from the statistics they provided, we didn't think any of the personalised information was necessary, so queried Haymarket on why they needed to collect this information. Okay, we asked how long Haymarket retained personal information, why they collected it, and if they got rid of it securely. We, as a department and a university, try not to collect any personal data that we don't have to. So we explained we only needed anonymised monthly totals for the usage statistics we were looking for. Haymarket concluded that the names and email addresses were necessary for the purpose of providing an online subscription service to our users, which we would disagree with. Haymarket say they keep information for as long as necessary, but we've got no idea of how long this is, and they wouldn't kind of give any indication to how long this was. So for us, there could be an issue in that our students could have left the university for some time and Haymarket are still retaining their information. So Haymarket did agree to remove the personal information going forward for our user statistics. but they would still continue to process the personal information they had. So we had serious concerns around why they needed this information and asked them to provide a copy of their assessment that proved they needed this information, because they were using it to justify collecting the data, but not why it was necessary to collect it, which was our issue. Haymarket weren't willing to share this documented assessment with us, which is a shame. And this is where we left this issue. So we're not really that happy about where this has been left, but that is where it's been left. Okay. We think we as a community need to stand together on issues like this, and we are aware that some publishers desire to move to a one user, one resource acquisition model, which keeps creeping up on us, might cause more problems with personalisation in the future. We are being asked to buy more traditionally non-library friendly content. Some of the things we've shown, like Retail Week, and more commercial products, like the law ones in particular, for our students to use. So therefore the pressure to provide personalisation features and user details and products is much higher. So we've got examples of their Stratex Mix Pro, which is a business simulation game that we've been asked to buy recently. And this will just increase as departments and faculties change the way they're teaching and making it kind of more current and modern. We think in such instances, providers need to make a distinction between academic and business clients. So where, as we've seen with the law databases and things like Retail Week, they're not really set up for academia, and if providers could make more of an effort with academia, it would really be appreciated. We want to remove, not increase, barriers to knowledge and content, so access is easy, fast and seamless for our academic community. And I think that is very pertinent at the minute in particular. So we're not experts in this field at all, but if people have got any questions, we'll be able to answer them, but possibly not the background technical stuff. But we're very interested to hear about other people's experience and start a debate around this. And if you want to contact us about the topics that we've raised, let us know. We also want to give a big shout out to BMJ in their presentation earlier for mentioning that personalisation can be optional and implemented without pressure from academic libraries. So big up to them for that. We have another, it's kind of something that we were hoping would prompt debate if we were in a live session. So OpenAthens recently mentioned in one of their webinars that it was possible to find out who was or wasn't using online resources, and then we could then contact students, those who weren't using certain things, in order to try and improve their grades in relation with our faculty engagement librarians in the departments. However, we wondered how we would do this if their sign-in information was anonymised. Does this go against GDPR? And we'd just be generally interested in the thoughts of the group. But who has time? Who has time to do all these things? So that's our presentation in a nutshell. So does anyone have any questions around this?
Yeah, I got loads. Look, that was really interesting. I mean, and just on one of your final points about continuing the debate, we've got is it 20-minute break coming up? Would one, or indeed maybe all three of you, be prepared to stay on and join that panel debate? Because I can't help thinking that your presentation will one, it will have raised a bunch of questions, and two, certainly today you presented the freshest research in this area, so I think it might be helpful if you could.
Yeah, I think we can stay around, all of us, I think, for that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at the timing. Yeah, okay, yeah, so okay, we got 1 minute. Let me see if there were any questions that came up. Bear with me for a second. I'm looking at about 3 different apps here. So, okay, I think I'm going to part this one for the debate afterwards. So at one point you said we couldn't say no to the provider, and then I think on your penultimate slide you said we as a community need to stand together.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Yes, I think it's there's a lot of pressure, I suppose, certain from the departments what they want to use for teaching, and then there's quite a strong element of that.
With one example, we'd actually bought the resource before we'd realised we had this problem. So we found ourselves in an even trickier situation, considering they already had the money from us. So we sort of had to work.
Right. I mean, we just thought on, yeah, okay, just to, this will be the last question and then we'll break, Sophie, I promised you. Again, I think on just about the final slide, you made a reference to being asked to buy non-traditional library-friendly content. Does that, is there a tension there in that you're thinking, well, actually, we're not being resourced to do that? Is there just a straight economic issue there?
No, it's more about when we buy things like this, it tends to be more one user, one login, rather than you know, the ebooks or the database where it's just you dip in and out. It's one per person, so it makes it harder to have this anonymous, and also the companies just aren't really set up for that kind of payment structure, I guess. So it's more around concerns around that than the other thing.
Okay, thanks. Right, Sally, Jerome and Hannah, thank you ever so much. We will see you again in 10 minutes time, and I will hand back to Sophie.